who's going to lead this next group of players? They're looking for a head coach. The wheels have kind of turned around the NHL, openings and vacancies that have now been filled. I don't want to say the Sharks are the last ones to figure this out. I mean, we'll see how the rest of the full season plays out. Do you have a favorite? I know we're kind of on round 2, and the pack has been kind of narrowed down a little bit to the candidates. Do you have an idea, a suspicion, or a favorite?
I think the top 3 that we keep hearing for head coach are Blashill, Warsofsky, and Sturm.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you had to put a favorite, I would probably say Warsofsky and Blashill. For me, my favorite is not those two. It's Sturm and Marco Sturm. I think.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Nico. See, this is so confusing. No, Nico can't coach and play. No, I'm kidding. No. Actually, when
Nico's a good player coach type guy. He leads them on the ice.
No, you know what's funny? When Nico joined the team a while back, I had to retrain my brain every single time to not say Marco Sturm. Nope. Nico Sturm. Sorry, I interrupted you, but
no,
yes,
we're
talking about Marco, obviously. Go ahead.
They're both German. It's okay.
Yeah.
So right, and I look at, one of the things that Greer said during his exit interview is somebody with NHL experience. Now, while Sturm only has assistant coach experience in the NHL, he's been a head coach in the AHL. The Ontario Reign had a very good season again. And I look at his time as the German national team head coach.
Right.
Like, that team has Tim Stützle, it has Leon Draisaitl, and Philip Grubauer is your goaltender. I'm blanking on some other names. Obviously, Nico Sturm's on that team, but he's not counted on for offense in that type of that. Maybe with the national team. That team in like the last 8 to 10 years has really become a competitive team. Maybe not championship winning, but they're in games.
They're in the mix.
Medal rounds.
Yep.
It's and I look at who their head coach was, and I look at the collective system and how he got the best out of his best players and he got the best out of his role-playing players. And I look at a team like the Sharks, in which they just try to get the best out of everyone. I feel like Marco Sturm can bring a lot of, I want to say, direction and structure, more so than just on ice play, but as a, almost, the phrase, know your role. Like, while I'm not trying to say he's a fourth liner, he should stay that way. Like, take pride in it. I look at a guy like Barclay Goodrow. Like, he's a bottom 6 forward, fourth line forward. He's got 2 cups to his name and signed a big contract because of it. And he's a former Shark, right? I look at guys like, fourth liners like Corey Perry, right? He's a guy who went from MVP to third, fourth liner, right? Like, knowing your role and taking pride in it is something that I think the Sharks did well, but I don't think they emphasized enough what the differences in roles need. You need your stars to be stars. You need your good players to be good players. You need your role players to be solid. And one of my favorite clips from David Quinn was how bad you're bad. And instead of grouping that all in one, push your best to be your best. Push your veterans that are lower in the lineup to play their best and provide a little bit more. And I think that structure of what Marco Sturm on an eye test could bring, that's why I like him, because I feel like he could section out players on this team differently than we've seen in some recent years with the Sharks.
So, I mean, I had some thoughts initially when the opening happened, and I was thinking about, well, Todd McClellan doesn't have a job, former Sharks head coach. Jay Woodcroft obviously also was dismissed this season by the Oilers. What a weird situation. Yeah. He and Todd could take separate jobs or take a head and an assistant coach job together. I don't know. I was thinking about all those things. But I do know this. When David Quinn was hired and the Sharks were really still trying to figure things out, I never thought the expectation was there for him to get this team to start winning. It would have been a bonus on top if he could get them to do that. I do think whoever is brought in next has to do 2 things really well. Number 1, work with young players, help them develop, help grow them, help them understand the situation. But at some point, if that person, that next head coach, wants to stick around, by the way, I should have said this too, we're recording this on Thursday night. I'll be publishing this on Friday. So if we're having this conversation and, a Sharks head coach was announced 10 minutes ago.
It's going to happen. I can feel it. It's going to happen.
Max and I didn't know that on a Friday. We're suspecting it could happen on a Friday, but we have no direct knowledge of that. The next head coach is expected at some point to turn a corner. Yeah. The next head coach can't be part of a team that loses again for 2 or 3 more years. So I think there is some added pressure on the hire, the person, and not to say that David Quinn didn't put that pressure on himself, but we're realistically going, to your point, to get to the point where we're trudging out of the demolition of the rebuild and starting to do the build of the rebuild.
Right. And Mike Grier, like you look at a GM, if you come in, you bring in, let's take a look at a traditional situation. GM comes in, there's already a coach in place.
Right.
Okay, maybe not going well. Fire the coach, bring in your guy.
Right.
That doesn't work out, you fire him. Okay, the new guy better work or your job looks like it's more on the line. Mike Grier brought in his guy in David Quinn. He let him go. You better get this one correct. And I think there's pressure not only on him, but on the head coach as to bring the next level, like you're saying. But Mike, like this is Mike Grier's second head coach in 3 seasons.
But the timing of it, I will say though, is even the Sharks to move on hiring Grier and also the head coaching decision. If I'm correct, I don't think the Bugner dismissal to the Quinn hiring, I think it was late in that summer, right?
Yes.
A couple years ago. My point being, yes, it was Mike Grier's guy, but it didn't necessarily happen conventionally where there was some time to sit and evaluate it. It kind of had to be a GM head coach hiring tandem situation. So to your point, you're right. I'm just saying that even the Quinn hiring was not bad. There was nothing wrong with it. It just happened quick.
And I agree with you. And I think from that offseason to this offseason, I think there's more options this offseason. I mean, 19 head coaching changes have happened?
There's a lot to sift through. Absolutely, yeah.
And Mike Grier, and I'm sure you can agree with them on this, and everything that we've seen from him are it seems like he's a guy who's thorough. He's meticulous in his process. He makes sure it gets it correct. And I get that sense from him every time we get the chance to speak with Mike Grier. And, this is a crucial part in the Sharks rebuild. It's that build part. The demolition is basically done. Still some things to do, but not a crazy teardown like we saw the last 2 seasons. You got to get this coach correct because if you can't develop the core that you brought in and it's still going to be brought, like you still got 2 more draft classes to bring in. And that's not including Celebrini, right? He's in. Who are you going to take at 14? You got more picks, 2 picks first round next year. Who knows what other trades they make? You got to get someone who can take this team to the next level. Maybe not win the cup with them. Maybe they will, but you got to get this head coach correct because you can't go through a 19-win season and then come back with 23 wins. Like if it's 23 wins and you're competitive, sure, maybe you got to leave it. But I want to see a significant difference in play. I don't want to see a 10-1 game or 10-2 game. When we get one, sure, but you can't follow it up with another one. And I'm not blaming David Quinn for that, but there needs to be a significant shift in direction of this team.